I think it's gone. Okay. Hi everyone. So this is our second webinar of the challenge, and today I'm joined by my friend Ellie. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, so it's a pleasure to obviously speak on this platform. I'm a good friend of Rachel's. So my background is I'm an endocrine specialist. So at the moment I actually work in paediatrics, but I did do a lot of my time in obs and gynae. So obviously I work with hormones on a regular. But personally from my background as well, fitness is a huge part of my life. So I've grew up doing quite high level of sport. So I've ran for Great Britain, been very fortunate to travel the world with athletics. I also played badminton to European level, and I played for Everton Ladies. Fun fact, my initials are EFC, so any Everton fans out there. But yeah, so fitness is a huge part of my life, and I'm very fortunate to work in an area where I can see how your health and lifestyle can affect obviously your performance in sports and obviously physical activity.
Yeah, so I thought this would be really good because obviously doing what we do all the time, I'll get women who struggle with the periods and like knowing how to manage that, and obviously it is quite difficult because our hormones are everywhere, our emotions are everywhere, and then trying to manage your training as well, it can kind of like mess it up a little bit because definitely. You lose your motivation. Obviously that we've spoke about that before, but it will have a big effect on that because that week before or that week of you feel like, oh, you've got no motivation, you struggle, so you may have a little bit of pain. So it's trying to manage that. So I thought having Ellie here would be like really helpful for that. So we just firstly wanted to go through like a brief insight into the cycle. So she's going to go through that. So it's good to know actually how it works and what our body goes through. So you understand that more, then you can learn how to manage that. So shall we start with that?
We'll take it away. So it's going to be a very, obviously like a brief version of your cycle. And if you want to do further reading, please, I'll give me contacts to Rachel. Just feel free to contact me. But what it is as a woman, obviously, I feel like we do live still in a man's world. It's getting better. There's just not enough education still on how we can listen to our bodies, how to know our bodies fully. So we'll just take it out to try and think if you can make this visual. So a cycle for a woman obviously can last 28 days, 31 days for some ladies. It does vary from person to person, and that's completely normal. 28 days, it's like the cycle of the moon. Just think of it like that if you want to remember. So day one is when you would start your bleed, so menstruation. And this typically for most women would last like 5 to 7 days. Obviously, with some conditions, it can last longer, and then some ladies, it's shorter. So obviously, I think that's like a thing which you've expressed, obviously, with clients, that when you start menstruation, we have a lot of different changes in our body. Obviously, the main one being we're bleeding, so our uterus lining is shedding, and that means that our hormone levels in our body drop. So as a consequence of this, you might feel more tired, you might obviously be in the discomfort from the bleed, but there's a lot of different research out there that can suggest that training, it's very old mindset that people used to think you need to hide away. And I know that from my nan, when she talks about things like that, when you be on your period, it was very much a time of, oh, you need to make sure you was in a safe and secure place. Hot water bottle.
Stay in bed.
Yep, definitely. A lot of that very comforting side of things. And don't get me wrong, like that is definitely what we need if we are in like acute pain. But now, like a lot of research has gone into the fact that obviously physical activity, it reaps benefits. You know, if you imagine when you are obviously having on your period, your body is in a state of inflammation. Yeah. So inflammation, just for those who don't really understand, that's like when our body's in a bit of a more stressful situation, and it can affect on like our immune system and a lot of other things. But when you do exercise, it's a natural anti-inflammatory. So obviously, if you do a little bit of light exercise whilst you're on your period, you're gonna obviously like reap the benefits that you might not have the cramps as bad. You'll feel overall better in yourself. You might even feel like you might want to do more. You can even push yourself a little bit. Just really honor and listen to your body when you're obviously on your period, and don't like overdo it. It's very much listening. And if you are someone who does bleed a lot, then you just have to make sure you have nutritious meals. And obviously the blood loss can, obviously with some ladies, can be like anemia. So you want to make sure you're having enough B12, and obviously Rachel must give advice a lot on like your diet and stuff. So just making sure you get a lot of B12 in, and basically just like eating nutrient dense foods in this time.
Yeah, I think that first week is the main kind of issue because a lot of people will go into it and be like, oh, I'm on period, so then use that as an excuse, and that can be fine if you are that person who is in agony. Like I would never expect someone in so much pain to push themselves further than they should. But then if you, like for me, I was saying to you, we'll probably go into that, but I struggle more the week before hormonally.
Definitely,
Like that's
definitely.
when my emotions are everywhere. Like I literally want to kill Adam. I think we break up every time. And like literally every single time. And I feel a bit disgusting, like, you know, where you just pick at yourself and things like that. My appetite, I find it the week before and I'm sluggish then. But then sometimes when I come on, it's like bang.
Yeah, definitely. I feel the exact same. Like before I come onto my periods, that is my worst.
Yeah.
That's my most like
So you know it's coming. There's a storm.
Yeah, the storm is brewing. Elliot goes, and I actually, funny enough, I always come on my periods when it's a full moon. So like my boyfriend is like, oh, here she is, the full moon's on. Like if I'm a werewolf or something. But yeah, so like I actually like follow the moon, so that's quite good. Like
okay, like I'm in sync.
I'm like
to the moon.
definitely
like,
in sync with the moon. Then
I'll
also
spend more time with you and then we'll match up and we can all be in sync with the moon. Let's all do it together.
But yeah, that month, like that few days before I come on my period, oh my god, the negative self-talk that I do to myself is like insane. So sometimes when I actually come on, it's like my body's like relief, like a proper relief.
Do you know why that is that the build up of hormones before that is to happen?
Well, if you imagine, so that is just as you're going to deplete your hormones. So if you imagine you like a wave, your body's like a wave with all these different hormones and you have surges of different hormones and different. So we obviously have estrogen, testosterone, you've got prostaglandins, you've got progesterone. There's a lot of different hormones. And obviously these are all secreted from a little part in your brain. But if you imagine through your month, these peaks and troughs is where you'll experience these similar emotions. Yeah. So and obviously doing exercise in combination with this, it releases a happy hormone. So even though your body
need that balance,
you definitely need that balance 100%. So obviously going through that first week of your period, listen to your body, but definitely don't be very predisposed to think I can't exercise, because exercise and light movement can only reap benefit. Yeah,
well I was saying for a proper example, say literally today one of my clients came today, she's probably watching this, and she was like basically thinking about cancelling the session because it was the first day she'd just come on, and I understand how that feels. You wake up and you're like, it's just happened, you know, like you just want to lay there and do nothing. I said to her, we will just do a gentle session. I'm sure you'll be fine and you'll give it a go. Because obviously she didn't want to cancel, and she did come. She was absolutely fine. Like we just did it a little bit lighter than we'd normally do, because I didn't want to push her to a point where she was like, because I think you can get quite frustrated if you can't match the strength that you had on another week, and that's what we'll get to. So I didn't want to even make it feel like that. So same for you, if you're training, don't go in trying to get PBs if you're not feeling strong or you're struggling a little bit. Go for like a lighter session, do some yoga, go for a long walk, something that's different but is still manageable. Then you feel like you've done something, you're getting something out of it, and you'll release that inflammation, what you were saying, but you're also not putting that pressure on. That pressure
on yourself, just be conscious and know, my body's doing this. It's an amazing thing to obviously be able to go through. That's what I always think as well. Even just like talking about the cycle of a woman. We have a whole other part of our anatomy compared to men. Like men don't have a womb.
I'm like, oh my god, I want to speak about it all the time.
Like men don't have a womb. Like we have a womb. We have a uterus. Like we have that. Obviously they have, you know, their other parts. But we have ovaries. Like we have this whole other meaning to our body, and it's, you know, that's what like makes me sad in the world that we're in now, because people still don't like give that respect to like what's happening to our body.
Yeah, because obviously I do have an understanding to do my job, but then that's why I want to do here, because you do have that deeper knowledge, and I will learn everything from what you're saying, because it helps, and you do need that deeper knowledge, I think.
Yeah, so like just a little bit on like going on my job. So I work with, you know, teenage girls potentially who going through puberty, or maybe they haven't started puberty yet. So it's a lot about, that's when you're very first, you know, subjected to it. And that's why I try and do a lot of education to young girls, because otherwise you just don't really get it. You just don't really hear about it. Like
I don't ever remember speaking about it. No. From like the actual chat about like sex and that.
In your school, I remember like school like passed around like tampons and like all packs of Always. I remember being in like year 6 and we was all just passing around these pads. And I was like, what are they for? Like, why are they nappies?
With the men as well. Like,
the boys just throwing tampons, and I was like,
I'm not taking this serious. It's not gonna happen. So I feel like when mine actually happened, I didn't have any knowledge. Really.
And we'll probably I'll touch on this in a little bit as well. But you know, going on to like with contraceptives and stuff like that, we can sometimes think of our period as like, oh, it happened again. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I was meant to be going out with friends, or what an inconvenience. But I think that's where, when you learn about your cycle, you really appreciate it and think,
Yeah.
this is healthy, we want
Yeah.
this, you know, this is
No,
a good
definitely.
thing, it's not a bad thing.
Well, I think another thing, I don't know whether you might be able to say more on this, everyone will be different on this, but I came off the contraceptive pill, which you're going to go through,
Yeah.
and it took me a very, very, like, over a year to get my cycle back to regular. So that was quite hard for me, because I was struggled, because I obviously read a lot into it because I'm interested in it, and I was thinking, I'm doing everything here that it's telling me to do, food wise, like reducing exercise and stuff, which you'll go into.
Yeah.
But
But
then
still
it
not
still
getting
wasn't
that
getting
thing.
it. So
Yeah.
when I got it, it was like, I love it now. Like every month, I'm like, obviously I don't
It's
love it, but I like,
Yeah,
I'm grateful because it's
definitely.
very regular now as well. So anyone who maybe has struggled after the pill as well, and you're
Yeah,
stressed,
well,
the less stress you have, it will come back if you're
100%,
doing everything you
yeah.
can.
So if we move on then to the next stage, so if I just kind of like go back to your cycle, think of it as like this circle. So if you split it into two halves, so we have like a follicular phase, which is like the first part, and then a luteal. So your menstruation is that first 5 days, and then we'll carry on in the follicular. So this is when your body is getting ready. If you imagine in the background, the eggs are just getting sorted in your ovaries, which are going to then get eventually released. Yeah. So obviously to do this part, your body has a surge of a hormone. So you have a big rise in estrogen, a big rise in testosterone. So you're going to feel like this is when you can be hitting your PBs. This is when maybe you can like really try and push yourself, see what your body can do, because this is when you're going to really recover fast. You're going to recover fast. You're going to build muscle. This is when you want to try and increase your bit of protein intake. You want to try and use that.
Like utilise it as much as possible.
Utilise it in this part of your cycle.
That's why it's good to track as well. We
Track?
didn't even speak about that, like tracking your cycle. I think I do it now more because I'm not on the pill.
And
But
I
I think
mean-
when you're on the pill, you don't really track it. But
Exactly.
it's so beneficial even
Yeah,
whatever you're
because
doing
like
to
you
track
can
it.
just do it on your iPhone and everything now. Like it just comes on the health, thankfully, or you can buy like other apps that help track.
I
It's
think
like,
what do you just do what you want?
or even just like if you're old school like me, like you can write literally on a diary and be like day one, and you can kind of like guesstimate. Like obviously
Yeah.
you might be everyone's slightly different, but yeah, these days is like that. It's the testosterone stage really. The estrogen allows you to repair, because obviously a lack of estrogen can cause, you know, our joints to be sore, and we don't really want that. So when we have that stage, that's really when we can do. Rachel, like, like
hip
burpees and all, like hip thrust.
Hip thrust, we know. That'll be when we will put the 200 kg on.
Yes, and then I think it's like a really good time to work on like upper body as well.
Yeah, because that was
that's
what makes you feel weak.
Yeah, as a woman, I feel like my upper body strength's the worst. Like compared to like me lower
Legs,
body.
like we were on a smash legs, like give us legs all day, but then upper body.
Upper body, like that's when I try and do like a pull up. I'd be like, come on, today is the day. I can do it.
I'm gonna do it.
Also, just going on like maybe not exercise wise, but this obviously is when our sex drive goes up as well. You know, always something to know about. So that's like that surge in testosterone. That's when we'll be feeling our best. You know, we might look in the mirror and be like, oh yeah, I'm looking good today.
You do actually have them times, so it's weird.
100%.
How can you go from 1 week to then literally be like,
that's the funniest.
And then you just want to put tan on because you're like, it'll see.
It's just so mad. So yeah, like that phase then going into obviously when you've gone into your ovulation phase. So ovulation happens typically in the middle. So from like day 12 to day 16. So that's when our little egg is ready in the womb, and it's like ready and waiting. And obviously depending on what happens, it'll either then carry on your cycle or you'll go down that other route. Okay. So that's when we're most fertile. So if you're ever thinking, and obviously being most fertile yet again, I always try and think about like primal things. So if you think that's why you kind of feel your best. You might want to really go out with friends. You'll really want to be social. So it's very primal
because the nights out for them.
Yeah. Because that's when you really you feel it. I know.
When's everyone's week?
She'll put it in a diary, like waiting for us. But yeah, so that's when you'll want to be social. You might want a bit of like flexibility in your routine. That's when you'll be more open to trying new things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's
so like, I know it is. I feel like that's when you could try and incorporate like new things in people's training plans, like middle of the cycle.
Yeah.
Because you're more open to it.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
that like makes that.
That's good for me to know as well.
So then obviously after we've gone through our ovulation phase, we'll then go into our last. So this is the luteal phase. So this can vary for a lot of women, like how they experience it. I'll talk about me in a minute, but this is obviously when our hormones then start to get into this decline episode. So they're getting ready already, prepping to then go into shedding the uterus already after that halfway through. This is because obviously if your egg hasn't implanted, you don't need that there anymore and it'll want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense like that. In this time, your body is going to be, you'll probably be a bit more tired. You're going to need a lot more rest and you're really going to need to fuel your body. This is after ovulation.
Would you say more calories, or is that during your cycle that you need more calories because you're actually releasing the egg?
Yeah, no, so more calories is getting ready for this part.
To do that?
Yes, so if you imagine after your ovulation phase, you've got a womb lining, so your womb builds up. So to build up the womb lining, your body, obviously that's another thing for your body to be working on, and that without us even knowing, that's a mechanism which is using energy. So to fuel that, more calories.
Well, I usually tend to say, because obviously this challenge will be people who've got different goals, that they want to build muscle, blah blah blah, but there'll be a lot of people who want to lose weight kind of thing, and I try and look at it with my fat loss clients with during that week of when you need to have, you feel like you've got a bigger appetite, you need to honor that in a way, and I think it's a good time to, we're not doing quick fat loss on this anyway, so we're not looking for a quick answer, so we've got time. So if you need to take that week to go to maintenance and take that extra out of your deficit and do 1 week where you don't put any weight on but you also don't lose any, but it makes you feel better and it's good for your body, then that's what I recommend, but I don't know whether...
No, that's 100% right. Like, you really need to, that your calories shouldn't probably dip in that. If you do dip, you'll feel fatigue.
If you're okay with that, you're gonna feel it.
You'd kind of notice if you was to really drop it and you're on like the training and they're on a low calorie, you'd probably, that person might be more inclined to not continue with that.
And
give
up.
And give up.
And
because,
that's what we don't want.
But that's not like as if you should take that in yourself. It's because your body, without you realising, is doing that extra work that needs fuel.
And it's telling you that it needs more. Definitely. So I think it's a good, you've got to think of them hormones. We only feel all crap anyway. So if you're going to feel guilty for eating more, then we need to kind of take that another stress on it. Your body's going through a lot of stress. We need to take part of the stress out of it, and it is part of that could be like coming out of that. And eventually, I think you'll get better results because them weeks is where you'll lose the motivation. Yeah,
100%. It's all about like longevity and like knowing that this, if you listen to your body, you know that this is only a temporary thing. This is only a temporary feeling. We also have in this part, like you have a surge of something called progesterone. So when we talk about contraceptives, you will have heard this hormone. So you have a surge in this, that can also make your appetite increase, okay? And it's just the way that the hormone is. That's its mechanism of action, really. It can affect our appetite and how our hunger receptors are in our body. And that's all because it's getting you ready for, you're going to go into menstruation. It wants you to have like enough energy reserves from when you shed.
I suppose if you do it differently as well, if you were to really undereat or whatever during that time, maybe, I don't know whether it will, but like make that week harder. It'll struggle to do that, but then I suppose we want to go on to maybe the energy balance next to explain why that wouldn't happen.
Well, going back onto like that last bit of your cycle as well, touching on sleep, because that obviously affects your energy balance, and you probably do a lot of talk on sleep. I
struggle a lot to sleep that week before, and I also sweat like hell.
Because in that last week, your overall body temperature increases because you've got this organ like powering away. So obviously your overall body temperature is high and hot.
Oh my god, I wake up in the night
so warm, sweating, like literally that's so normal and that's good. That's the response, because your body's like, you just imagine it's like a little powerhouse.
I can see it.
All that energy.
I can see it like it's a little
energy.
Say me if you're grateful. All this going on.
So, but then obviously sleep is so key in this part, but we can have really bad trouble sleeping. So this is really when you want to practice your sleep hygiene. In that last few days of your cycle, maybe the last week or so, really try and be conscious of like maybe like toning down your like blue light before you go to bed. Maybe like
less TikTok, less scrolling.
Don't be watching this before you go
to bed. Turn us off.
So, and then like obviously your caffeine and stuff, any which you think could affect your sleep. Let's try not to do that in that last week, because your sleep's going to be poor anyway without all that added on.
And it's a good thing to say, maybe if you weren't sleeping at all and really struggling to sleep, then that's maybe when you wouldn't train. Because if you haven't slept well or had any sleep, it's like
you're more likely,
fuel in your body's not going to work with you.
And you're more likely to then injure yourself, and that's like not what you want, because then you're going to set yourself back, aren't you?
Yeah.
So then obviously like, if we want to then go into, maybe before I go into energy, I'll talk about, because I've talked about a normal cycle. So I'm saying a cycle without any hormones to put in. So like that's if you're
Yeah,
not
so
on
say that's
the
me.
pill or
That's
anything.
mine,
Yeah.
for example, but you take
So,
someone else's.
Yeah, so obviously there's different types of contraceptives out there. I'll talk mainly about the oral contraceptive, but the same hormones are in like the the implants and the injection, and you can get patches as well. So this is something I think we've probably all been there. So when you're a teenage girl, most likely that's when like most girls might start on a contraceptive.
Yeah.
It might be for different reasons. Sometimes obviously contraceptives can be used for because it can help with skin. You know, if you might be suffering from acne, it can obviously affect hormones to then try and reduce some of your basically like your sweat glands in your face.
Yeah.
So that's like another reason. Obviously, another part is, you know, you're not getting pregnant. A funny one which I actually do find is like sometimes it can be given to help with mood, but then the
When it's
actual
unmasked.
long term, you
Yeah.
end up you're 20% more likely to be put on an antidepressant if you are on oral contraception. So
Wow.
that's funny. So
Yeah.
they basically treat what they're
It's 'cause
treating
it is-
with it
If
with
the
it.
hormones are like
That
not
normal.
real.
Yeah, because going on to that, like if I flip back and be like that last week, like I don't know about you, and you said like Adam and you, like that's when I'm a psycho. Like I'll be
No,
like, I'm
literally,
literally,
it's bad.
and I don't recognize myself sometimes. I'm like, why am I actually being this?
No, you
like,
convince
sure,
yourself though too, don't
sure.
you? I'm convinced. I tell
like,
them every time
There's
it's
a
lovely.
cloud. There's a cloud. Like I'll be like, why am I like this? But it's this PMS, what you get, this premenstrual syndrome, and it's all to do with this crazy influx of these hormones before you this little
Yeah.
breath of fresh air when you go on your period. But like literally that PMS, that can be really elevated when we're obviously adding these artificial
really
hormones in.
elevated. I thought it
Yeah.
was like it might be different, but I felt it like numbed me. Like I was like I felt numb to
So,
everything. I felt
yeah.
quite like nothing, no
nothing.
peaks or nothing, and then I just had the baby, but I just had it,
Were-
and then that was it.
Was you on a combined?
Yeah, I was
So
on
there
like
we
a
go.
Jocelyn one.
Yes, so there we go. So I was on progesterone only.
Oh right, okay.
So this is what,
The
so
difference.
yeah, so we've got two different, there's two main different pills that we prescribe. So you combined, so that's like the Yavmin and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that your combined oral contraception is estrogen and progesterone. It's got the both of them in. And you take that where you'll have like your week break where you'll come onto your period.
Yeah.
You like take it and then you have your week. Then for the likes of me, I went on a progesterone only pill. So you take it every single day. You don't have a period.
Yeah, that one without the break thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
I know,
break.
I've got quite a few clients on that. This
No
will be
break.
so interesting for me because I actually
Yeah.
I know what it is and I've been on it, but I don't actually know.
Yeah, no, but this is what I'm saying. So it's so mad that you'll go and get this medication. It's a medication, like it's like, you know what I mean? It's the most highly prescribed medication is contraception. Like it's mad. And you go and get it from your GP or like a health visitor or whatever. And there's like no conversation about like what it is. Yeah, and they're like, and obviously at that time, when I said most of us are young when we go on it,
Yeah.
do we really care about the side effects? No,
No.
because we think it's doing the job that it's meant to do. It might help my skin, or it's not going to let me get pregnant. Like
Yeah.
that's what we're thinking about, and
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't read the small print which says all these side effects, you know, like potentially affecting, like, you know, I'm not going to like scare people. And obviously, contraception is really good when it's used effectively, but we
Yeah.
need to be more insightful. Like you wouldn't, like, especially now when we all look at the back of food packaging and everything, never
Yeah.
mind. But yeah, we'll openly just take this pill. Like you wouldn't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
we're
that's
not
like what we
even
think
saying
about.
it to be like whatever. These are like the facts of what it does, and then it's
Yeah.
like you should know the facts. I think before you
just
do
wanna be-
anything to educate
Yeah,
yourself.
definitely. You want to be like insightful when you make that decision. And I
Yeah.
think when we're younger, we're not informed enough to know. Does that make sense?
No, that's the thing. I look back and think, especially when I couldn't get mine back for a while, I was quite
You wish
in
it
a
was
way
in you.
resentful in a way because I
Yeah.
felt like I didn't actually
Sign up for this.
no, like I didn't know this was going to be a situation. And it's also it's something that's actually as you get older, obviously is important. So
Oh,
that's like also
100%.
obviously as you get older, you realise that you do need to know when that is happening. So
Of
for me, I
what
was
is
like,
happening. 100%. So if you think though, when you take obviously your oral and like you combined, which you was on, where you're still having that bleed, at least
Yeah.
you're still getting a bleed.
yeah,
That's
I felt
that's
like I was
a good
still having one.
So it mimics a cycle, but your hormones are actually the opposite.
Oh wow.
So everything in your cycle's the opposite when you do it
Yeah.
combined, which is mad. Progesterone only, obviously progesterone I told you in a normal cycle, that's increased a lot at the end of our cycle because it mimics, if you imagine when you've got high level of progesterone, so ladies who are pregnant have a high level of progesterone. You can't get pregnant if you're pregnant.
Right.
Make sense?
Right.
So
it's
when you're on
mimicking that.
progesterone, you have got a high level of progesterone, so your body can't get pregnant because your body already thinks it's
Oh my
pregnant. in a way.
god, that's actually
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
So, which is mad, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
did
like
not
so,
know that at
it's
all.
like so artificial. It's mad when you think about it. But yet again, what did I say? Obviously, when you've got an increased progesterone, increased appetite. So this is when
So people can
ladies,
put on weight.
that's
and
when
things
when
like
you have this added cravings, because potentially you're kind of just living in that last phase
that.
all the
my God.
time.
People
Yeah,
say they feel like that though, so it's actually dead interesting that you said
you're just
that, 'cause
living in that phase.
a lot of people come off it completely because of how bad they feel. Because I remember people saying that to me, and I was like, I didn't feel that bad. I just felt quite numb. So that shows the difference between
Yeah,
the two.
100%. And like obviously everyone can still experience them differently. This is the most wide like approach and like how most people would feel. Some people really have things and experience nothing, like that's great. But I think the longer you do use contraception, the more you will feel this in your body. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Obviously, if you've been on it for maybe a year, you might not have the same effects as someone who's been on it for 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and like the likes of me, and a lot of girls will probably resonate with this who are on progesterone only. You still bleed when you start it. So you'll be taking this one pill a day and then you'll be spotting and you think, why am I taking this? Like I'm still having this inconvenience of a bit of a bleed.
Yeah.
So then I was actually upped to 2 progesterone a day.
Oh my god.
So I, for like 3 years, took double progesterone a day. And now when I look back, I think, oh my, why was that recommended to me?
Yeah.
Because I basically suppressed my womanly hormones. And I look back and I think, I lost like my shape, I lost my figure. I did change, like my body did change a lot because I was obviously suppressing this axis in my brain to be like this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then another thing you've got to think if we're putting in these artificial hormones or other normal hormones, like what I said before, you know, your estrogen, yeah, you're still going to get these little surges with the combined, but your testosterone is really depleted. So you'll note most women who are on it will, and especially progesterone only, will have a low sex drive, you know, and I'm just saying, but then that also means, like what I said before, you'll have this low motivate. You won't feel like you're at your optimum. Does that make sense? Because you're getting that buzz of this testosterone, this surge.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, they are so useful, but really then appreciate and listen to your body even more if you're on,
Yeah.
you know,
And see how you can manage it.
See how you can manage. And like now, like I always try and recommend, even if you was to give your body a break, you know, like try and give your body like maybe a month's break out of the year. You know, just let your body kind of have a little break from these artificial hormones. And that's the thing, when we come off, obviously it's different with the combined because for contraceptive way, that stays in your system longer.
Oh, maybe that's why.
Yeah, progesterone only, as soon as you take your first progesterone tablet, you are like using it as a contraceptive. It works instantaneously.
Oh, right.
Whereas like with combined, it takes a few
days.
days. So as soon as you kind of stop progesterone only, it can kind of go out your system. So you should get your cycle back sooner.
I spoke to other people and they said, oh man, it's fine, it came back straight away, so there you go.
Yeah, so it can come back sooner when it's just progesterone, whereas the combined, it just like floats in your system for a bit longer, which is not really the best.
Yeah, well that's what I mean. I think they did say that to me, they were like, calm, like just stay calm. So I was like, no, this is not normal.
But then also going back onto like, I don't want to be like as if they're so negative because they're really not. Like for girls who maybe don't have a regular cycle,
yeah,
you know,
they can get
a lot of girls who don't have regular cycles doing a combined, you're going to have that 1 week of being on a period.
Yeah.
And then yet again, going back to your training, you're able to then sync it because you know, I'm having my period this week, this is how I'm going to feel beforehand, this is how I'm going to feel after, and this is how to utilise it and obviously get them happy hormones going to really influence your training.
Yeah. So it's obviously everyone's individual and it's your decision at the end of the day, but definitely educate yourself on
100%.
What will be best for you. And then if you are going to do that, how you can manage it instead of obviously if you are feeling the feelings that we were saying, say on the progesterone one, like how you can manage that, because you can't feel like that all the time, or you're not going to be able to train well, are you? You're not going to see results really if you're constantly in that mindset.
And if you are on progesterone only, you need to then be conscious if you're living in this kind of latter phase of your cycle for most of the time. When we was talking about sleep, we was talking about food intake. We also need to remember fluid intake, and you probably talk a lot about like hydration status, and that's when girls can feel like bloated and puffy because your fluid status is higher. So you can be like, you retain more. Do you know what I mean? So you really need to be conscious on like how you hydrate yourself through your cycle. definitely in training.
That's across everyone though, isn't it? And the
Mhm.
whole way through, but maybe a little bit more,
More
especially when
so,
you're training as well.
definitely,
Yeah.
100%.
Definitely.
So then should we go on to energy balance? Because I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of like linking in. If we all kind of know our cycles now, if we
It's
think
like
that,
kind of the abnormalities,
yes.
isn't it?
So if we want to talk about, right, maybe we could kind of go like red flags of what you could kind of experience.
This is more for like, so we want to do it more in a way like, because it's not like a scary thing, it just is
No.
a thing that can happen when people don't understand. Say for example, this didn't actually happen to me, but I remember when I first started training that I went in full force with the exercise because I fell in love with it massively, and I just trained, but didn't do any conscious effort with my food. And I have a lot of girls who say they don't have an appetite and stuff like that and won't eat, but then I'm saying you can't train how you're training without enough
You
food
can't.
because it's not going to work. And then you think, well, why? And then I did it, and my body changed, so I could see that it was getting to a point that it was kind of too lean in a way, so could have nearly got there. But I think it's like when you've not got the knowledge around your nutrition, it can basically be a red flag. It can be dangerous. So you need to know what's needed. As a woman, it's different from a man. I see people all the time, and it's good saying we're not small. Women aren't small men. Like we're not. We're completely different from them.
Body.
They can actually put their bodies in different states that we can, and get a lot leaner than we can in a lot of cases where it's healthy. But for us, it's a bit different. So
and obviously, as a woman, that whole point in us having that extra fat is because we was made to potentially like have a baby, and that's what you need. If you don't have that, it can make that difficult for some people.
I always say that's a happy place. Like
Yeah,
when I'm
it is a
playing,
happy
that's the
place.
enjoyment
100%.
place. It's sometimes things if you want to go that down, you could be potentially, if you're not genetically like that, get rid of the last bit of enjoyment.
And if you do a lot of yoga, like one of your main chakras is there, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like it's that nice.
All the goodness is there.
100%. Talking about then cycles, obviously it can all be different, and if you think, don't be hard on yourself if your cycle isn't regular. There can be a lot of different reasons. It could be hormonal because of like PCOS. It could be that you've had a really stressful month.
Yeah.
Mentally stressed.
That's what
mental
it is,
stress. Yeah. So any stress you put on your body, whether that be mental or physical, can have this knock-on effect. Yeah. So it can, obviously, if we're going through like a really hard time, maybe you've got exams, you're in university, like stress at home, stress in your job, your body thinks, is this really a priority right now? No, because I need to put it into other use. That's when you think about with the exercise level as well. So as you said, like sometimes when we push ourselves into this like deficit type thing, or we're doing a lot of high intensity exercise, just for that, it's like postponing something.
Yeah,
your
well,
body's
by the way,
thinking,
I think we said we're talking about the loss of your period.
Yeah,
we kind
like
of like
this-
hinted towards, but this is if you were not
yeah,
to have
just
one,
a
or to
delay.
miss one.
Yeah, just a delay of periods, or maybe like skipping a month of a period. It's
Yeah.
just, and you'll then notice you might go through your phases, like what we talked about before with this hormonal change, like later on. They'll all be like a little bit offset, and that's why like making notes in diaries or apps is like really good. 'Cause it's like a nice little tracker, and recognizing whereabout you are. And obviously, like as I said, with the stress that maybe, and when I say stress, I think we kind of like dramatize it, like to our body, like we
Can
think
take
you
a
are,
lot of stress.
yeah, our body can take a lot of stress, but then also sometimes in our minds we might not appreciate the stress that we're putting on our body.
Yeah.
Like we're so immune now in the world that we live in. You're probably like, you become like numb to other things and be like,
we are
oh,
quite
I'm fine,
stressed people, aren't
I'm
we?
totally fine, like
Go,
that
go, go.
Ross on Friends, like
Yeah.
I'm fine, everything's fine. No, but your body's like, no, not really, that's fine.
Yeah.
So that's like when we kind of might have that little bit of a delay in a period, or we'll lose it. But then it's like literally thinking about making a conscious effort to see where you are at, really evaluating. That's what Rachel really helped you with, and like what you can actually do to make them conscious lifestyle changes to get that back.
Yeah, to
isn't it?
minimize like the stress or manage your stress, like because exercise is really good tool to manage stress. But then it's like when the time's not right to put extra stress on. Say for example, a HIIT session is a lot more stress on your body than like a weight training session or a yoga session or whatever like that. So it's picking the times when you're in a lot of stress in your life. Say if I'm quite tired but I know I want to move, I'll go to like hot yoga or whatever because I want to move.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go to a HIIT class or do my heavy sessions then because I'm not there, like my body's not wanting that, so it's listening into that.
100%, and it's as you said, listening, like opting for something else. Just because you might not be able to do like your 10k run
or your set
plan, it doesn't mean you can't go on a nice walk, or maybe tone it down if you're feeling like this. And that's like, I have a lot of talk with girls in clinic who I've went through a loss of periods, so it's called like amenorrhea. So that's when they've had a period and it's kind of stopped. And we really look and we evaluate, okay, what are the different adjuncts in the life that's happening, and how can we try and work to get this body back in this natural cycle? Yeah. Sometimes they might need a little bit of support, but as Rach said, just it's about managing and seeing these life stresses and seeing how we can try and ease them out. Because life is stressful, you know, we all go through phases where things are hard. Maybe it's hard physically, hard mentally. And it's obviously, as a woman, we want to make sure that this cycle's still ongoing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this is another thing people don't realise. As soon as you start your period, you are then classed as perimenopausal for your whole life because you are pre-menopause. Menopause only lasts 1 day, by the way. So people think, if I'm going through the menopause, you'll hear older women. Menopause is 1 day. So menopause is a full year since your last period. So like when you're older, like that's what it is. That's signified last period. So people go, I'm going through the menopause. There's no such thing as like going through the menopause. The menopause is that 1 day. But you go, all these symptoms. So
of that. Yeah.
It's like menopausal. Do you know what I mean? Like that lot, a really crash of estrogen. That's why all little old ladies get fractured hips and stuff like that. Because estrogen's so key. That's why exercise and building bone strength.
When we've got it.
Well, that's what I mean. So that's why doing a lot of strength exercise, building them bone strength is like so key because it's going to help us with our mobility when we're older. Like that's why it's so important. Well, you touched on before, obviously, like when you've done a lot of high level training, and I don't know, like I actually did, like I lost my periods.
It's very common in high level, like competing sports.
High level sports. So I was obviously training quite a lot. Like I was training twice a day sometimes. I was competing. I was definitely, even though we had like a nutritionist on the team, I was not feeling my body. You've got to imagine, I don't know whether you girls was around with it, but can you remember like thigh gaps?
Oh yeah, I was. That was like when I first got into PT. It was like all that, and then
like Instagram had just like started, and it was like
but it was only like you could only be fitness. Like fitness is so much better now. It's nice to watch it like grow
because it's like strength and like women want to be strong, whereas it was like this mad. People want to look like Kachexic, like it was. Abs. But then I would like be traumatized because I'd be like, I can't get a thigh gap because I'm like running all the time. Like my quads are like getting bigger. Like I'm the opposite.
Because you were probably so lean.
I was like obviously so tiny. And when I look back, and I really ended up being a bit like dysmorphic because what we was projected to in social media was so different. And this thing of being like, oh, fitness was like this image. It was like a mad time,
it's crazy that people that we were looking at then. If you go on now, they all have changed. They're not like that anymore. So it's mad. It's weird to explain.
Following journeys.
But it shows that it's not sustainable. So even these people that we were watching maybe for a year of our lives, pitching ourselves at this level, that level actually wasn't sustainable for them. So now they're coming out of it and saying, I was like this. These are the people you see on Instagram. Like I was like this. Now I'm like this.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like that was the trend. So it's like we followed them come out with that, and it's so nice to see it become healthy now. But I've obviously learned a lot since then as well.
Yeah, it was a very like aesthetic time, whereas now I think it is like everyone's more health conscious. Well, a lot of the good trainers out there are health conscious, aren't they?
As well. It was very clean eating.
That was like, how can you? It's like life is life, and life is about balance. 100%. I don't deem, like the way I look at it in my clinic, I don't deem any foods as good or bad. Like I think as soon as you label it, it's a detrimental thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, calories, we use them for fuel and exercise. Like, yeah, obviously there's things that we'd like to stay away from, as many preservatives and artificial things, but that's like another
processed
topic.
As possible. But that's why I think it links well to the period though, because I think that week before is when you're going to crave and blah 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 whatever. You're going to have a bit of chocolate. So if you've already said that's a bad food, and you're saying come to me, and if I was dead with clean eating and that, then you've already failed. And if you're failed, you're just going to stop.
You feel like you're punishing yourself, then, aren't you? But then that's not good in the long term, because you're going to be so like bad towards yourself. I mean,
we're not getting rid of chocolate anytime soon either.
No,
so that's the good news.
That's like the good things in life, isn't it? Food for that.
Yeah.
But going on to like, as I was saying with this, when I went, like there was like the thigh gap episode, and so I should have at that point really been fueling my body a lot. Like I should have been eating out surplus calories a lot.
I think that people who are like swimmers and stuff like that should be on like when they're like over like 3,000
calories a day. And I remember I went through, and you know what, like it's a lot of like this bad. I had a really bad like coach, right? And I remember I went to America with my mum and dad, my younger brother. We went to Florida, and I was like 17 at the time, and I think I was going to I just got to, I think I was selected for England at this point, and I come back from holiday and I was racing that weekend, and he was like, well, you're not, you've like, he talks about me weight, and he was like, I can see where you've put it on. You're gonna run crap today. You're gonna be awful.
When
I
you
can
probably
see
needed
you're
that too.
heavier. He was like, I can see you're heavier. So I felt like it was like,
How did someone even pick at a girl like that? I don't
it's like
understand.
it's like a mad world of like coach and like this man who was in his 60s. And
Yeah,
he was just like,
it's very
you
like that,
put
though.
you put like weight on, and I remember thinking, I'd never really connected weight to like outcome. Do you know what I mean? Like that was not a thing for me at that point.
So that would
And
have
then as
triggered
I
you a
went,
lot.
as I got a little bit older, and that's when Instagram boom went with like the inspiration and all that, definitely didn't fuel my body. And my period, it's always, I'd like miss a few months, it'd come. Miss a few months, it'd come. Be like,
So that was quite
who knows?
normal.
Who knows what's happening? Like, is it happening? No, don't know. So then when it actually just completely stopped, I'd got a job as like a spin instructor in New York, and I'd work. I was doing like 6 hours of spin a day. Like, so it was insane. Like, it was insane
that's
level. Do you know what I mean? And then my period just vanished. I ended up going getting investigations in the women's hospital, and he was just like, yeah, like
Energy balance.
negative. I was in a very bad negative energy balance. Like, I was not feeling my body. But then it was just detrimental because me mood, me hair, like I felt like my hair was thinning, like my skin wasn't good, me mood, I was like down in the dumps, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like not a good time. But then it was a very hard, your girls probably find this, and you might have went through this, like then trying to like get over that, because then you might have been eating such a literal minimal level of calories
to
try and jump it up. It's like you feel,
awful.
yo, no, I can't be doing this, I'm not doing it. But it's just about learning.
Yeah, so basically energy balance means like you a bit, so like obviously when you're in a calorie deficit, you will do that. You are playing around with your energy balance, and then it's healthy to be in a form of deficit. Like, you can go to a level that's healthy, but then when you go beyond that point, that's when as a woman you'll, for a long period of time, so that's usually a big deficit for a long period of time. So that's why when we even do fat loss and things like that, we will go into a smallest deficit we need to and run it for longer rather than go deeper.
Huge deep, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not necessary. So
No, not necessarily at all.
yeah.
You've just, and the way I talk to it, like with the kids, or when I say kids, like teenagers, you wouldn't drive a car, would you, if you had no petrol in? Like that is like the main thing. I love that. I think it like resonates so well because it's like so easy. Like, I feel like the old doctors used to say, if you don't feed the horse, and I'd be like, why are you saying that to the kids?
Tell me about a car.
And then just talk about a car and putting petrol in it, because if you don't put petrol in, it's not going to drive. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then I felt like I was just running at this bare minimum level for so long that obviously your body then prioritizes what it needs. Oh, like, she's going to need energy to actually like walk, breathe, talk, use her brain. But I'm not going to use that because right now you are not in that position to have this cycle, you know. And obviously, like, that mechanism is because if you was to have a baby, like, that wouldn't be good. You know, it wouldn't be good for me or the baby. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Oh, a little bit hectic. But to get like negative energy balance, that's when obviously I work with Rachel, and then going into making sure when you do your calorie deficit, it's in like a healthy way, and that makes you have this positive relationship with food, isn't it? You see food as this nutrient dense source that fuels your body, and it's not something that we should be ashamed of or shunned if we do have like
no, that's what I mean. I think that's why it works so well what we do for a lot of girls now. The main thing I've seen over the years is probably people eating as little as possible to lose loads of weight, and never ever works. We never ever lose weight. So this might be you who think I always do little and then it just fall off and doesn't work. It's the most common probably thing that I've worked with, and the girls who I've seen who've got the best results are the ones where we've built it up, slowly built it up. Some of them are on a hack. They're eating more than they've ever eaten their whole lives. They're balanced. They've got a good lifestyle and that. But you'd look at them, the two pictures next to each other, and be like, she's definitely a lot less there to get like that. And you'd be complete, like, people in their lives are going, oh my God, like, you don't half eat a lot, and they're just like, well, yeah, I can. And it's like, you can build it up to that, and that's what you need to do. That is the best way to do it. So it's kind of, you need, same with this, you need your education. So that's why I think this one is like really important, I think.
100%. And I think obviously, like, talking before about fueling your body, making sure it's the right levels, depends on where your cycle is, you're going to have different cravings. It's fine, like, listen to your body and think, okay, because then you'll know that at a different stage in your cycle it's going to be changed. It's not forever. It's a 28-day cycle, you know what I mean? And it's like making
anything
sure
can work, anything can fit.
100%. And another thing which I hate, like, now, weight is such a determinant of like outcome, and it's like, that's so wrong, isn't it? Because weight does not mean health, you know. And that's not what it is, because obviously you could a number could go up in the scales. That doesn't mean anything at all. Weight
Yeah.
is not a determinant. Like that could just be like you've got more muscle mass, but obviously overall you're toned, you're better.
Yeah,
You
you
know?
could be like the same weight, but look
Completely
completely
different. It's all
leaner.
about body composition, and especially another thing, like girls who I remember I was like at a point in my life where I would weigh myself quite regularly, and it was so negative because yet again, as a girl, when I was saying about this
Goes up and
cycle,
down.
we are gonna change like these hormones that are like a wave through the month. We could literally do the exact same every day, and our weight will change so vastly
Yeah,
because of the water, because our womb is actually bigger in a sense, you know,
Yeah.
it's got more uterus lining, so obviously it's going to weigh more. Think of it like
Yeah.
practically like that. Our boobs, you know, when you change, you have that like
water,
that boob tenderness, which is just
Yeah.
the worst before you
That's
come on.
that.
Oh
the
my
actual weight in
goodness.
there.
I mean, and you feel like you feel a bit like, you know what I mean? Like I'm like,
You
oh,
feel-
where did these come from? Like,
Yeah.
but then they go
the
like 2
next day.
days later. I'm like, oh yeah, bye. See you in 20 days. But like, it's just mad, and I think obviously as a girl we are different, and I think the male fitness industry changes that, doesn't it? Because like
Yeah.
they put this one thing which men can do, and
That's why it's sometimes hard having like you can have really good male coaches who'll understand and they will get
Yeah.
the knowledge into all of this and they will be clued up. But then you might have others who just completely don't understand. And I've had girls come to say they come to session, they're just dead hard on them, like this isn't
Yeah.
this, not understanding that like they
yeah,
might be struggling with things and they're different, so it's harder to explain to a man sometimes.
Definitely.
You have to be open about that
Yeah.
and how you feel.
And I recently had a conversation with this male coach, and he was like, I didn't realise. So he had a girl client in. So say she was deadlifting. She was deadlifting 65 kilograms, yeah. So that was like what she was doing. She could do like, I think she was doing like say 6 to 10 reps. That was
Yeah.
like what she was doing. He said, then the next minute he had her in next week for a PT. She could only lift 45. And he was like really was thinking, how can this be? I've been
Yeah.
coaching this client. How was
Because
she
they only
dropped
see it as
20
progression,
kilograms in a
like
week?
progression, yeah.
But then he was like, that's why he's now so invested in learning about female health, because that's not because, you know, she's like become somehow like not as strong in that week, but her body is using its energy resources for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that make
Yeah.
sense? So like that doesn't mean she's dropped strength or anything. It's just, you know, you're gonna fluctuate, and
Yeah.
you learn to your body and think, okay, well if I'm only doing that today, maybe I'll put like an extra like flow at the end of my session. You know, you really just change
Yeah.
it.
No,
and
and it's
move
good.
with it.
I think opening the conversation is obviously this is for the taster, but I think putting some of this on Instagram would be good as well. So I feel like we have covered. I feel like we could talk forever.
I could talk forever about like women. Like, I mean,
Get
shout out
Elsa.
to women.
We need to save some for like next time. Like put your paper away and save it till next time. But that was actually so good. So as you can tell, we've completely lost the light. So if you watched it at the start, it was daytime,
We're in
and
the
now
darkness.
it's nighttime. Maybe we've been going that long. So when we say
Oh
that, I have
God,
to
yeah.
Oh God. No, we've saved it. It's fine. But anyway, that was so good. So obviously, if you've got any questions, make sure
Hit Rachel up and she'll always pass
and
on
I
to
will
me.
pass it
And
on
I'd
to
be
Ellie.
happy to obviously come back and talk to you girls
I
again
think
if you wanted
definitely,
to.
and then your feedback on this would be amazing if you found it helpful. Let us know so we know what you need to know more of, and questions would be good because maybe we could come back and answer
Little
questions.
Q&A.
Yeah, that would
Love
be
that.
good. So yeah, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
My God, I could have talked for 7 years.
Oh my God, I could have.
I'm so sorry.
Please don't. Oh,
Oh no.
don't. Okay. Yeah. I did this yesterday and then it didn't go straight like in the